October 10th. I'm Scott.
Brains!
And this is Geeknights. Tonight we review the first 2 hardcovers / first 4 trades of The Walking Dead.
Let's do this.
Next week on Geeknights, it's Questions Week. Oh, mans.
I'm kind of looking forward to it. A few of you, and maybe not that many, but a few actually asked some good questions.
Yeah, and surprisingly, while you might think that, when something is fun for the listeners, it's not fun for us, it's not true. Questions Week is sort of fun for all. And
I mean, I remember...
I do Questions Week every week if it wasn't going to get bad. And
well, then it would turn into Penn Jillette's show.
It's sort of the same reason that Penny Arcade doesn't do Cardboard Tube Samurai more than once a year, because they know if they do it too much, it'll get played out, even though they love it and we love it.
Because I will admit, when we first did this way back, we did like a Thursday, Ask Rib and Scott Anything, and that was super fun.
Yep. So, send in questions via forum or email, and we may or may not answer them. Make sure that, we're doing this 4 days of the week, so a Monday question should go to Monday, and a Tuesday question should go to Tuesday, and a Wednesday question for Wednesday, which is today. And Thursday, you can ask any question that isn't Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday question.
And isn't already answered by Google.
Yes.
Or perhaps a previous episode of Geeknights.
And also, to try not to ask a question that has an incredibly long answer. But actually, a lot of people have asked questions that have incredibly long answers. But it's kind of okay, because we're just not going to answer them next week. But they do make good episode topics.
And I think you'll see a lot of those in the future, because a couple of them I looked and I was like, what would I say about that? Oh, that's more than 5 minutes doing a whole show.
Yep. And they were actually good episode ideas. So I guess the next time we ask for episode ideas, just try to ask questions that have really long answers, and that's an episode idea.
So, nothing interesting happened in our lives in the last 24 to 28 hours or so, so let's get right into the news.
I'm still, got this, phlegm coming out of me.
Hey, you seem a lot better than you were on Monday.
I feel better, but my nose is full of snot, and it's going down my throat, and it's not, it's bleh.
One more night of Sudafed, and you'll be fine.
I don't know, I'm not even going to do Sudafed. I'm just going to...
Why not? Take a Sudafed. Can't hurt.
No,
Sudafed's great. No, it can't.
I just blow my nose and cough.
Or just take a Sudafed and feel great.
No, or not.
Right, so this is kind of relevant because I read a comic and, I have news about a comic.
Holy crap.
Well, kind of. It's about a manga. But, manga, comic.
A manga is a subset of comic.
But, and I know, I'm curious how many of you out there are going to think this is good news and how many of you are going to think it is bad news. And I wonder how many of you can guess what our opinion is.
Well, that's easy.
Dark Horse, who have been putting out, among other things, Blade of the Immortal, which is a very popular manga that's been running for quite some time.
Yeah, and I am under the impression that it is very good. I just have yet to read it.
I remember Greg was reading it pretty much as it came out, and he had a whole mess of it. I just never...
It's a samurai manga. If you like samurai action, the Kenshin...
Who doesn't like samurai?
If you like, say, the Kenshin OAV...
Don't say that. If you like the first Kenshin OAV...
That's what I said.
You said the Kenshin OAV.
There's another one?
There's... The first OAV, the Samurai X...
You missed my thing. I know about it. I'm saying is that there isn't another one.
Oh, you're playing the I have no son card.
Exactly. So if you like the Kenshin OAV, or if you like Lone Wolf and Cub, or some Zatoichi or something like that, you're probably going to like Blade of the Immortal, and you should buy it at the bookstore on Amazon or something like that.
Well, Dark Horse has finally seen the light. They've realized that something they were doing was kind of silly, and not many people cared about it.
Or maybe they just weren't making money from it, so they...
Well, if they weren't making money from it, then it probably was kind of silly, and most people didn't want it. They're done with monthlies. They're no longer, as of the last one that will be released on November 7th, going to release Blade of the Immortal in 32-page monthly comics. It is only going to come out in trades.
Yeah, well, you see, back in the day, like in the 90s...
Well, I guess graphic novel format, since trade doesn't actually mean the format, it means how it's sold, but anyway.
Right. But whatever, in the back in the mid-90s, when they would bring manga to the U.S., they started out with... Sanctuary, Lone Wolf and Cub.
Remember the mid-90s?
Crying Freeman.
People didn't have cell phones and most people didn't have DVD players.
Project A-ko.
Oh, that was a good show. We got to talk about that.
Viz and Dark Horse are pretty much the only companies putting manga out, except for Marvel with their Akira, right? But even Marvel with its Akira, they put it out in the same format as comic books in the United States. They chopped up the manga, and they would put one chapter at a time in like a 24 or 32 or 36 page comic book, just like The comic books of old, and the comic books that, people who like Underwear Pervert comics still get every month. Little tiny, flimsy, floppy books that come out every month.
That don't fit on a shelf. There's no way to store them easily. If you don't put them in baggies,
unless
they
you
get
buy
crushed.
bags and pieces of cardboard and cardboard boxes. Which cost more than the comics themselves sometimes. Yeah, so all the mangas came out that way. But most of those mangas either ended, like Sanctuary, they eventually finished it, or they canceled, or something happened, right? And the only one that's still going, that they're still putting out the monthly issues, is Blade of the Immortal. I think even, didn't they were doing, I think the other one recently was the Canon God Exaxian, but I think that one sort of stopped and got held up and had some censorship issues and whatever. So Blade of the Immortal is the only real manga I know of that was still coming out in the United States in the classic monthly comic book format.
And I guess this is just more proof that, by and large, other than fans of traditional comic books in the United States, no one wants that format.
No one wants that format other than people who like it for nostalgic reasons and people who like to waste money.
I mean, you could make the argument that
a lot of people buy that format because they can't wait. It's like they need to know what happens next right away. As soon as it's possible to get the next page of the thing, they'll get it. But if that just didn't exist, they would get, the quickest way to get it would be the other format.
Well, see, there's two things in comics. What a lot of artists do now, maybe not a lot, but they'll release the monthlies, but they'll put little extras in those that won't be in the compilation.
But also, some people release the monthlies and then put extras in the compilation.
Yeah, which is what you should be doing.
Other people they'll write their story for the trade, in quotes. They'll write a story that's meant for a trade, but then it'll get chopped up into 4 or 5, 6 pieces and put out monthly, and then a trade will come out. Or they'll write for the issues, and then the trade will come, and the trade will be a little bit awkward. Because they didn't write, because it's not one story beginning, middle, end. It's a bunch of small stories.
That's actually something that I noticed when I read through
the
printed
the
version of Mega Tokyo, and it just, in a non-webcomic form, it really didn't flow right, and it didn't feel like a comic.
Nope. They'll also the end of a plot line will come in the middle of a trade or something, because the number of issues they would have had to combine and stuff, because they didn't write for the trade. And it's becoming, it's going to come to a head, I think, within a year or two. Either the monthly is going to die. I hope.
See, I don't think the monthly is going to die, because that is one of the monthly mentality of, we've got to sell these and the fans have to buy them to be loyal to us, and the nostalgia and everything in the underwear pervert industry is so strong, and no one seems to have the balls to say, you know what, this business model is doomed to eventually extinct the entire idea of underwear perverts.
I've been saying that.
Yeah, I know.
People seem to go blah, 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 blah.
Well, no, only comic people do. Other people either don't care.
Other people don't care and don't read comics.
Yeah.
I'm saying that's the problem.
But the thing is, a lot of those other people read manga.
They sure do.
And, I mean,
Not enough even, though. Not even enough then, though. It's sure, barely anyone reads underwear perverts, and a lot of people are reading manga, but still not enough.
Well, it depends on the I mean, every now and then there's the super hit. Fruits Basket sold some stupid amount of comics.
It did sell some stupid amount, but even that stupid amount was not even a drop in the bucket compared to an average video game.
Yeah, but even then, it depends on what kind of video game.
Or a run-of-the-mill movie.
Because most video games sell for crap, and then there's the few that actually sell.
But I mean, we're talking a crap video game that sells hundreds of thousands versus a crap manga which sells 1,000.
Yeah, it also,
the
markets matter, because manga, even if they don't sell in the US so much, still sold in Japan and made all the money there. But underwear pervert comics don't sell anywhere but here.
They actually do sell them in pretty much all around the world.
Oh yeah, but what volumes do they sell
in many different languages.
I mean, how many do they sell in Europe?
I guess enough to be worth. I mean, I guess they don't sell every single title in every single country, but they have you can get Spider-Man pretty much anywhere. You can get Spider-Man in Japan or
but look,
in Mexico,
you can get video
Europe,
games in
Africa.
You can get video games in Australia too. It's just they come out 3 months later and cost twice as much.
Yeah, I don't know how much Spider-Man costs in, say, Russia. Do they have Spider-Man in Russia?
All right, we have a lot of
how many issues behind are they?
United States listeners, tell us, when do comics come out over there? How expensive are they? Do they all come out?
Yeah,
can you tell?
Can you buy Spider-Man and Superman in the store in your language?
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I don't think that I just don't feel like they
Can
would
you get
sell
the
that
trades in your country?
I don't think that underwear perverts have quite the following in other countries that say certain shows have in Mexico.
Yeah. Oh, also, just a side note while talking about underwear perverts. In December, Marvel's doing something kind of good, but not super good. It's like they're getting closer to the right track. If you went to the comic book store right now to get some Spider-Man, right, you'd have a choice between Amazing Spider-Man, Ultimate Spider-Man, Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, Spectacular Spider-Man. I can't even think, but I know there's more. All right, all these different Spider-Man comics, and they're all different.
That alone was actually the reason I did not get into comics as a kid, because my parents wanted to get me into comics. They got me this X-Men board game, and I was like, huh, and it came with an X-Men comic, and it didn't make any sense. And they were like, "Oh, you got to read a bunch of them, or else it doesn't make sense."
Actually, the reason they had all those different titles, right, is because each comic comes out monthly. So if they want to have Spider-Man more than once a month, they make a different Spider-Man, and they all like if you just read Friendly Neighborhood, it's like one story, but if you read Amazing, it's another story, and they sort of match up a little bit, but each one is like its own story.
But I'm just saying, so they took me to a comic book store, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna buy a bunch of X-Men. And then I learned that there's X-Men, X-Factor, X-Force, the Uncanny X-Men. Fuck it, and I gave up.
Yep. In December, if you go to the comic book store, you're only going to see one thing. Well, you're going to see Ultimate, and you're going to...
You're only going to see one thing, a bunch of nerds.
Well, Ultimate... That's true. Ultimate Spider-Man is its own separate thing. There's nothing to do with anything, so that'll still be there. And... Marvel Adventures Spider-Man is for little kids. You'll still see that there. But
honestly, that is my favorite Spider-Man.
Yeah,
I think that's better than any other Spider-Man.
Marvel Adventures Spider-Man is pretty good. I have it. Did you read it?
I flipped through it.
Yeah,
and I liked it a lot. I just haven't had time to read it.
It's all right. It's all right. But if you go to the store in December, you'll see Amazing Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man, and Amazing Spider-Man.
So they have 3 different comics called Amazing Spider-Man?
No.
I know.
It's one comic coming out 3 times a month.
I know. I was making fun at the way you presented it.
Yeah. But and actually it's being written by Dan Slott, who in my opinion is the only guy who can write a decent underwear pervert comic these days.
Oh, these days. I was going to say Alan Moore, but...
These days.
Yeah, these
So
days.
I ordered all 3, and we'll see what comes of it. And if it's not bad... then I'll probably get the trades of the Amazing Spider-Man from now on.
So, speaking of ADV, what do you got in the news?
Speaking of ADV, right.
I had no sequitur there. What do you want me to do?
So there was big news about Geeknights going down the tubes, and who knows what the hell they're doing. It's not, whatever, they're done. ADV laid off 13 people. Now people are like, oh man, the anime industry down the hole. Who knows what's going on? Whoa. But actually, ADV is hiring people in other departments. So
I think this is much less a, oh my God, we're going under, and much more a, get rid of employees who weren't pulling their weight, reorganize the company to have more focus on what's important, which should be marketing.
Yep,
maybe.
Not counting freelance people, which I'm sure they have freelance designers, and they have a lot of freelance voice actors and all that stuff. They only have like 100 employees. So firing 13 people is like
firing 13%
of the workforce. That's huge. But they're going to hire people in other departments. So I guess they realized that something about the way they were doing business wasn't working. And they're rethinking it, which I don't know the specifics of what they're doing, so I can't give an opinion as to whether I think that's good or bad.
Yeah, partly because the anime industry is so secretive for no good reason in this country.
It's because they're a private company, so they don't have to be any less secretive than they are.
Oh, yeah, but it seems like a lot of companies, and sometimes it's justified, but like Google was that way for a long time, but they have this idea that if I'm not legally obligated to tell people something, I'm never going to say anything. And I think that might hurt them a little bit, just because...
I think that hurts. That's an issue for every company. I think in general that with the internet, right, the way things work is people on the internet who are paying attention to information about your company want to know, and the more open you are with them, if they'll be able to see right through you, and if they see that you're doing good things internally, so if you're confident that your company isn't stupid, then being wide open to the public, people who don't go on the internet and don't care, they're going to see your company through your marketing face. They're not going to learn anything about your company that they don't already know because they don't care and they're not going to pay attention. And people who do care are going to find out everything. And if what your company is good, they'll be happy. And if what your company is bad, then you do have something to be ashamed of and regret. You probably should fix that and then open up.
I just feel like, and this obviously I can't let it spawn off into a crazy tangent because we'll have to
It's
do
already
a show.
spawning, I feel it.
We'll have to do a whole show on it separate because I got a lot to say. But I feel like the anime industry, as it is run in the United States, is barely alive and just on the verge of collapse at all times. And I think that they're really mismanaging something that could become gigantic and make a lot of money for a lot of people.
I generally feel that almost any business could become and make a lot of money, and a lot of people just don't. And I don't know, maybe because, like us, they don't have the initial investment that's required to do that.
But these companies have a lot already. They already have the contacts. They have some capital. At least I assume they have some capital. They must make some money. They don't. There are some semi-obvious things that these anime companies could do that would probably make anime a lot more popular and as a result allow them to sell more
Probably
anime.
to do an episode on what we'd do if we ran an anime company of some sort.
Let's just leave it at that. We'll do an episode sometime in the future on if we were in charge of ADV, what we would do.
But I think it's generally good that, I don't know if this shift that they're doing in priorities is this specific thing is good, but the fact that the companies are trying to change to try to do better business is encouraging.
That means a lot because I have a lot more respect for someone who tries and fails than someone who never tries.
Yep, who just goes with the status quo and whether it's profitable or not and just keeps cranking the crank.
Yep, but like a good
Try
example.
cranking a different crank if that one doesn't work.
It's kind of an analogy, but you might notice that oftentimes Scott and I malign very obese people. But one thing I would never do is if I see someone who's really fat and they're trying to work out, there's nothing funny about that because they're trying. And the anime industry is a big fat guy
Unless
right now.
it's that gif on Fark.
That one gif?
That one.
That wasn't working out, though. That was King Leonidas.
No, I'm talking about the one on the treadmill with the
I have no idea what you're talking about.
big fat lady on the treadmill going dunka dunka dunka.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You've seen that animated gif.
I don't think so.
What the hell? All right.
I don't generally go seek out animated gifs of fat people. I don't know what you're doing on the internet. But
It's on like all over. You can't possibly avoid it.
what, like Goatsy? Or
Yeah.
Lemon Party? I was just gonna make a nice analogy about how the anime industry is an 800-pound dude and he's putting down the carrot cake. Now he might be picking up the cheesecake, we're not sure, but at least he put down the carrot cake. It's a start. Things of the day, and man, I really want some carrot cake now. I shouldn't have said that.
I don't like carrot cake.
Get the fuck out of the studio.
I really don't like it.
What?
Cake is supposed to be made of sugary. I like carrots a lot, but
God, there's a lot of sugar in carrots.
yeah, but carrot cake doesn't taste. Cake is supposed to be made with just candy.
What?
Carrots are
cake,
not candy.
Cake
Carrots
is
are like
not
for
made
salad.
with candy. Cake is made with bread.
Which is candy.
Bread is candy.
Well,
But carrots are not.
Cake bread is candy.
What about cheesecake?
That's cheesy bread.
Okay, it's not crazy bread.
No, it's more
Right.
like cream cheese, but
So
harder.
I thought for my thing of the day here, which I found kind of randomly, that maybe I should explain who the person is they're talking about and what the game is they're talking about. But there's a man named Richard Garriott.
Lord British.
Lord British.
He is a famous geek. Of course, he's not. Well, good or bad is up to you, but he's famous.
I'm going to say this. He made a series of inscrutable, unplayable games you might know as Ultima.
Get ready for the hate mails. Here they
And,
come. I agree with Rim, by the way.
Those games were ass. They were some of the most obtuse, just crap games, and they have such a following, and the following is largely self-referential and made up of, But this video, effectively, will tell you everything you need to know about a man named Richard Garriott, about the Ultima series, about MMORPGs, and about this game that I'd heard of but didn't know or care about, and I'm glad I don't know or care about it.
Yeah, I'd heard of heard the name of the game in the past, and of course I've heard of Richard Garriott in the past, but I never realized that they were like that. I didn't get the whole picture, and I'm very glad that the whole picture was presented to me by seemingly a person from Albion who agrees completely with me and would probably be my best friend.
I think my favorite part of this video is when he talks about his opinion of MMOs and then how this game may or may not have changed his opinion on MMOs.
This guy is definitely like the awesome guy, and I want to hang out with him.
Looks like it's an escapist thing. You might remember The Escapist, which was awesome until it turned into nothing but, hey, check it out, I'm a girl gamer. By the way, you should play EVE Online.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder what it's like now. Maybe I'll go read it this week.
Yeah, God, I used to read that when I worked at IBM.
Well, when it first came out, it was like, holy shit, there's this internet video game magazine.
That's erudite and interesting.
It's erudite, interesting, and only consists of like 5 really amazing essays every week. And then it went on and on.
And all the essays were the same.
And then all the essays were the same, and it kind of went downhill. And then they were the guys who made the Gamers with Jobs podcast, which was like the only good video game podcast. And then they moved over to The Escapist, and then they stopped doing the podcast. And then they started doing the podcast
again,
at The Escapist, and then they stopped doing it again. And
Plus,
I'm like,
when they started it back up, it wasn't good anymore.
so as far as I'm concerned, The Escapist is responsible for the death of the best video game podcast, and they're responsible for like a few good essays about video games repeated week after week. After week. So that gives them a negative in my book.
Right. So what do you got
Except for
me?
this video, which might put them at break even.
This video is pretty awesome.
Yeah,
And
it's really
I got to admit, I loathed.
So triumph, not the word triumph, which means, I guess, to, conquer over
Well,
something.
it depends on what context. I mean,
Yeah.
in Rome, a triumph was a specific and legal boon given to a general upon a great success. Like, if you did blah, 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 and you were awesome, you would be granted a triumph.
Right.
Meaning you could ride through the streets of Rome in a great parade
Yeah,
with
great.
all
So
the
Triumph is also a company that makes motorcycles.
booty
Yeah.
of your conquest.
And the one motorcycle they make is the Rocket 3, which is, I guess, the biggest motorcycle you can buy. At least the biggest, I guess, motorcycle being manufactured. I'm sure someone has like a custom bike that's bigger. But
yeah, plus theoretically, I could take 2 wheels and stick, I don't know, a Saturn V.
Awesome. So they have a factory where, of course, they make these motorcycles. And here's a video of what goes on in that factory. And I think
It's
that
a-
is all I will say.
It's a fascinating documentary.
Yeah, of how they make the Triumph Rocket 3 motorcycle.
Not just how they make it, but how they test it and all that. It's really kind of fascinating. And I didn't know much about motorcycles and their manufacture, but I feel enlightened.
You can learn a lot from this video. I learned a lot.
Right. So, like I said at the beginning of the show, I read a comic.
Holy shit, Red Rim comic. It's like, oh, wait, who's that at the door? I think it's Satan, and he's wearing a sweater. Oh, what's that behind him?
Of course he's wearing a sweater. It's like 60 degrees out.
Wait, what's that behind him? It looks like a flying pig of some sorts.
What's that? Mega Man's in Smash Brothers Brawl?
Oh, man. All right.
But not only that, one step further, we're talking about a comic that's about zombies.
Uh-oh, that's going to make a lot of people happy.
It's going to make a lot of people happy.
Not only that, but this comic is not a manga. It's an American comic book.
And not only that, but it's pretty good.
And it's really popular. Like, consider this, right? In America, comic books come out 24 pages a month about, right? Those little floppy things we talked about earlier. And then they eventually trade them. They take each story arc and they make a little book that's a soft cover. This comic book here, other than, stuff like Watchmen and whatnot, this is the only comic book in the United States that I know of where month after month, the sales figures on the trade paperbacks go up each month. So in month 1, say trade paperback number 1 sells 1,000. I'm just making up numbers here. In month 2, the trade paperback will sell like 1,020. And the next month after that, it'll sell 1,030, which means that the readership of this book is growing a lot. All the time, as far as the last time I checked, which was a few months ago.
So, without further ado, tonight we're going to review The Walking Dead.
Now, what we read is the first 2 hardcovers, which are the same as the first 4 trade paperbacks. And
Yep.
don't even ask me which monthly issues that covers.
Because it doesn't matter. And beyond that, today, because I just recently read both of these in one go, read the summaries of everything that's been released beyond those first 2.
Uh-huh.
So I know the plot as far as it has been released.
The reason I have the hardcovers, which are the same as the first 4 trades, is because they were actually cheaper the way I buy comics to get the hardcovers than to buy all the trades separately.
Yeah. Now I'll just note it was interesting, but the author, there's extras in the back of these hardcovers, and there's a little bit of talk like blah blah blah, and he expresses, I don't want to dwell on this, but he definitely expresses that sentiment that I hate so much in a lot of American comic people, where he talks about in this wait for the trade industry.
You mean spend less money and not give you more money for the same exact product, only worse because it has ads and it's in a bunch of little pieces?
Yeah, people who say you should buy the trades because it supports the art, or not
Buy the
trades.
monthly.
Buy the monthlies because it supports the
Go
artists.
listen to the episode we did last week, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, the Geek Back, the special, the one
Yeah.
about charity and such.
Yeah, that one. This is not a charity. Go listen to that episode.
Right.
Right. So this guy who writes this comic is Robert Kirkman. And Robert Kirkman, I've read a bunch of his books. Not all of them, but a bunch of them. And he's a pretty popular guy. He writes a lot of popular things. And for me personally, he's hit or miss. I mean, he wrote that Marvel team-up, the recent Marvel team-up. I like that a lot. That's like one of the only good recent underwear pervert
I've
books.
heard it was pretty good.
It's basically just like underwear perverts in New York, sort of like what the world would be like, but just kind of fun and yeah, this is how it would be. Woo. And I like that because it doesn't take itself all seriously and it doesn't come up with some contrived BS. It's just fun, happy times in underwear pervert land. And it's good stuff. He also wrote Invincible, which is an underwear pervert book that is for Image Comics. And I never read that, but it's pretty popular with some people. Another thing he wrote that's popular is that Werewolf. I don't know what it's called, but
It was a free comic book.
It was a free comic book, so I read the free comic book.
I just want to say it's so pedestrian.
It was called The Astounding Wolfman.
It was utterly pedestrian, and that's all I really have to say about it.
Right. So the book that we're going to talk about is the one that I guess he is like the guy of. It's like his work, is The Walking Dead. Now,
there's someone else drawing it, and I think the artist actually changed recently, but we're not even going to talk about the art because the art is just completely unnoteworthy.
The artwork is done by Tony Moore, who's the guy who does the artwork.
I'm pretty sure someone else is doing it now.
Oh yeah, but the artwork that we looked at in these two hardcovers is Tony Moore, and he did stuff like The Exterminators, which I really like, and I tried to get Rim to read, but I don't know where he put it.
It's somewhere in my room. I gotta find it so I can read it.
That's better than Walking Dead. I'll tell you straight up. It's written by someone that's not Robert. In fact, The Exterminators, I just got to say this right away, is written by someone who never wrote a comic before in their lives. And it's awesome. And it's like watching it. Well, I guess both of these comics, The Walking Dead and Exterminators, reading them is sort of like watching one of those HBO TV shows. It's sort of the same kind of plot. Like
you know what? You could take The Walking Dead and adapt it straight up into one of those HBO shows, and it'd probably do super well.
Yeah, a lot of the comics I read.
In fact, the comic is basically just storyboards for the show.
Yeah. So The Walking Dead, it's about zombies.
Now, on one hand, it is obviously in the line of all the classic zombie, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Dusk of the Dead, Reborn of the Dead, of the Dusk of the Dark of
Asterisk
the Dead.
of the Dead.
And all those movies, and there's a little bit of homage to them, and at the same time, it takes a slightly different take on it, and the author actually went to great lengths to talk about how the one thing that pissed him off about all those zombie movies was that they ended. Which on one hand, you could think, wow, he just wants to make money by making a comic that never ends. But two, he's kind of right in that every zombie movie either ends with, oh, everybody's dead, they lost, or, oh, they got away in the helicopter, the end.
Yeah,
or,
some other place in the world doesn't have zombies.
Granted, what zombie movies actually end as is always, the real enemy was mankind. I'll get to that. I really like this, but I have some issues with The Walking Dead. I'm not going to buy any more issues.
Forget about the hate mail for what you said before. You're going to get serious hate mail if you hate on The Walking Dead.
I'm not going to hate. Here's my problem. The Walking Dead starts out like everything I have ever wanted in a zombie media.
It sure does.
Because every zombie movie is almost always the same. And this one departs a little bit in that it's a lot more procedural. And it skips all the bullshit and gets right to the thing I care about.
Yeah, other zombie stuff, like what we saw that movie, The Days Later.
28 Days Later was
right? It started
super
off
good.
It started off pre-zombie, right? Then the guy was like in a coma, and then he woke up and there were zombies, right?
And it was really good, except I thought the end was really kind of cheesy and lame.
It was an okay movie. It wasn't like a great movie, but did they make a sequel? I didn't see the sequel.
As far as I'm concerned, 28 Days Later is an amazing movie up until they meet the military people, and then it's just crap.
I think it's just an average movie overall. But Walking Dead skips over that whole where did the zombies come from stuff. There's no mystery. It's not like, where did these zombies come from? We should try to find out and then eliminate the cause of the zombiness.
I sure hope we solve this mystery.
Or, hey, how do zombies work? I don't know. Let's experiment. Oh, they when they bite in this discovery. No, it's when it starts.
Well, there is some of that.
There's a little bit of that.
There's a lot of that later in the ones you haven't read.
Oh, but mostly it starts off with the zombie apocalypse happened, people accepted it, and now they're working out.
Yep, so it starts with this main character who effectively is a lot like the main character of Firefly, Mal. It's the same kind of character.
He's
in the
just a
beginning.
badass, kind of normal, straight-headed dude who knows the score. I think he was an ex-cop, right?
Yeah, he was a cop.
He was a cop, but then there was a zombie apocalypse, so cop doesn't mean much anymore,
Yeah.
other than guy with cop
So he
training.
wakes up in the hospital 28 days later style, and what the fuck's going on? And then he discovers zombies, and he runs outside, and this is where I decided this comic was amazing, because instead of the bullshit that happens in every zombie thing, you know what's he do? Gets some guns, goes out, tries to find people, does everything he can to be awesome, and doesn't fuck anything up.
And eventually gets to his family.
And they form this group of people who are living in a camp outside of the city of Atlanta, and they learn that all the city's collapsed and everything's gone and there's zombies about. And
They come up with a pretty good system. Like, they're hanging out by this RV. They got people together. They got food and water. They got zombie defense. You know, they got it covered. They're making do.
And what I really liked was that without bogging down on these details, this comic was really procedural about the zombie thing, and it skips a lot. Like, it'll skip intervals of time without warning you, but in a really good way. Like, it's kind of like the burning wheel in gaming, where it gets to a point where it's like, this is what I was waiting for, and it happens. And then, like, maybe they foreshadow, like, the next thing that's going to happen. They don't bother going through, like, all the crap that happens between. It just kind of cuts to, you know, it's 4 hours later, and they've piled all the zombies they killed into a pile to burn.
Yep. I mean, if you watch a movie like Dawn of the Dead, right? It's pretty much like the whole... I mean, sure, it's compressed to an hour and a half, 2 hours. I don't know
And
how
there's a
long it is.
montage.
Right. But, you know, there are scenes like, you know, they're ice skating, or they're hanging out drinking coffee in the mall, or, you know, they're doing stuff, you know, and it sort of, you know, it shows you, like, them going on. And in The Walking Dead, it sort of just skips the day-to-day life of zombie dealing with.
And it cuts to the
And
next...
it assumes a lot of it. Like,
It cuts to the next interesting or procedural thing. Like, all right, we're looking for a new place to stay. It skips all the stuff on the road except when they find interesting things along the way.
it's only the interesting, important parts, and all the other zombie stuff is just taken for granted. Like, oftentimes just killing zombies is taken for granted. It's like, yep, we're defending the zombies, bam!
I like the fact that they set up the zombies to allow for a lot of drama. The zombies are basically the slow, stupid, easy to kill zombies that only get you if there's a bunch of them and they surround you.
Yep. It's like if you have any sort of like martial arts ability and perhaps dangerous weapons, you can kill pretty much a bunch of zombies and they won't bite you unless you're really, really dumb.
Maybe if we ever do another zombie show, you know, in a couple of years, we should just take this zombie scenario and say what we would do.
What the characters do up until a certain point.
Yeah, pretty much. Well,
But-
then we do have that prison right there.
I know. But, you know, what goes on, it's like you still have the drama of society has collapsed. There are zombies everywhere. The zombies used to be people. The moral dilemma of killing them.
There's no moral dilemma. It's a
Okay,
zombie. You kill
yeah.
it. The moral...
The
there's
survival in the harsh, you know, post-apocalyptic somewhat kind of world, but you don't have the constant, like, death right on top of you, gotta fight constantly action movie kind of thing. You can have this human drama in this post-apocalyptic world, and the zombies only show up when you need them to make a story.
And most of all, just the fact that the characters are largely cool-headed, and they generally do... Even if not the smartest thing, I can understand why they do the things they do, and it doesn't
Yeah,
have
they actually try to think about what they're doing, and they go along with it. And the only time anything gets in their way is if something unexpected happens. Like, all right, they'll say, "Oh, there's an unexplored house. All right, we got to go check for food in this house." And they're going real slow and cautious. Like, they got a plan to check out the house and keep everyone safe while doing it. And they execute that plan, but maybe something will happen, like the house will collapse or something that will be unexpected, and that's the only time they'll be fucked, other than a human doing something stupid.
Yeah, now, once I had read the first hardcover all the way to the end, and it ends on not a cliffhanger, but for me, for the thing I wanted, because the first hardcover of this was amazing, and it was everything I wanted in a zombie comic. And at the end of it, they stumble upon a thing, and I think I kind of spoiled it's a prison. It doesn't matter. And that moment was like, oh, it's going to be one of those kind of things where now it's going to be all procedural, like they're smart. They're going to go into this prison and clean it out and make a base and something cool.
that in itself is sort of a new idea. I mean, you know, zombie we've had zombie movies and books and stories in malls
And houses,
right?
and nothing
and
else.
houses and office buildings and all. But a prison, really, when you think about it, is a really like this perfect setting for sort of a zoomed in human drama zombie plot. I mean, it's a place that has jail cells, which can be used for cool things. It's a place with a lot of food. There might be prisoners inside. That'll be really interesting. There could be zombies in the prison, which would be really interesting. There could be like police and weapons and guards in the prison. There's all this drama. But it's really defensible and hard to get in and out of, but it has a lot of land, and you could live in a prison without any outside contact, and there's just so much in a prison that it's just the perfect thing for a zombie story.
So I finished that, and I read the end of that book right before I got off the train and went to work, and I was like, hot fucking damn. This is the best. Oh my God, this comic. This is zombie porn for Rim. I'm so excited about this. This is great. I can't wait to see how they clear out this prison and how they're gonna, like, them defending against the various zombie attacks, and maybe they're gonna set up some
Yeah, it's got a
agriculture
fence.
inside.
You don't really need to set up so much.
It's got 3 fences.
Yes.
And like one of the gates is broken, but I'm
barbed
gonna get to see them to fix
wires,
that.
sniper towers.
Obviously, there's probably riot gear and crap here. I want to see him get that and suit up and use it and make a little society and then try to find local survival. Now, here is where I went from liking this comic a lot to not caring about it at all.
Oh, boo.
So, the next hardcover starts up, and the procedural stuff kind of disappears.
It's there because they do...
Barely!
Oh, they do a lot of stuff clearing out the prison and trying to figure out what to do and all that stuff.
That takes almost no pages, and nothing interesting happens. Because right away, they introduce a bunch of prisoners, and unless you're dumb, it's so obvious what's going to happen with these prisoners. And then it's so obvious, everything's just telegraphed to the point of absurdity. And the characters all start becoming bitches. And I mean, every single character, every single human becomes an absolute raging bitch. And when I say raging bitch, that has nothing to do with gender. The men are just as bad. And everyone's yelling and screaming and fighting. And it's not like, oh, the true enemy was mankind. It's, wow, these people are all stupid. I would have shot them all.
I think what it is, though, if you look at it the way I saw it when I read it, was yes, everything was sort of foreshadowed, and I kind of predicted everything, except for that character who showed up out of nowhere.
Yeah, but you know what? That character is crap.
It is.
That
I agree. That
is
character
such a crap character.
That was one character. I thought that character was
and
crap.
you don't even
stupid.
know when this comic gets into the gladiatorial rings later. It's just dumb.
I didn't get to any gladiatorial rings that were not in the parts that I actually read.
Yes, this comic. I read the plot summaries.
The gladiator stuff is stuff that Rim read on Wikipedia. We're only talking about trades 1 through 4, hardcovers 1 and 2.
Yes, but as far as I read from the summaries, this comic goes down the fucking tube.
Regardless of that fact, the way I saw it was they showed up at the prison and they had the same idea that they had everywhere else, which is, okay, this is how we're going to do shit. But then there were these prisoners, and the introduction of the prisoners was like this big monkey wrench in their well-oiled machine. It was
Except it didn't have to be. They set it up where it could have been okay.
It could have been okay. The problem is not only were the prisoners sort of the monkey wrench in their machine, but it showed that the machine they had going, which looked like a machine that was doing the best it could in the situation at hand, what did actually was a flawed machine, and that their own distrust that was imposed by the old human society and the prison, so their distrust of the prisoners is what ruined them.
Except they should have mistrusted the fucking prisoners. The thing is, the way they introduced the prisoners, it's like, there's the big black dude who murdered some people, and there's the little mealy guy who was a tax accountant evasion guy, and there's the little stoner guy, and then there's the big awesome guy. Well, it's pretty obvious which of those people is the most dangerous, and it's the tax evader guy. I'm not even gonna worry about spoilers because it should be so
Once you're introduced
obvious.
to the character, it is obvious when you see.
They show the pictures of all of
There's a
them.
scene, the first time you see the prisoners, that all of them are sitting at a table, and you see all these prisoners, and just by looking at them, and by knowing how people write, you'll know that, yeah, the tax evader guy obviously is hiding something, and that guy is totally cool.
But beyond that, this is my problem, is that one, all right, so, everything Scott said, and also just the stress of this situation is finally breaking these people down and all that, but one, That's what every other stupid zombie thing does. I don't need to see the same zombie movie over and over and over again. The reason I liked The Walking Dead was that the first 2 trades were not like every other zombie thing. They were a breath of fresh air. And then it just turned to the same bullshit that every other zombie thing is. I might as well just watch Night of the Living Dead, which is better.
See, it's not better. I think the thing is that
Night of the Living Dead is the best zombie thing.
I think Walking Dead is the best zombie thing. And
It would have been, except for the second hardcover on.
I think the thing is that every zombie thing, even Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, is the same thing. It's like first it starts out procedural and people acting smart, and then eventually they lose their cool. I think what the thing is that Walking Dead had a whole 2 full trades of not losing their cool before it got to the part where they lose
It had
their
2
cool.
full trades of one person not losing his cool and everyone else being a fucking moron.
I don't know about that.
Yelling at each other all the time.
They were smart enough to go along with what the smart guy was saying.
Only after the other guy dies.
I guess, yeah.
And also, just there are a couple of problems. I think my real issue is that this comic does the same thing that every other zombie thing does, but it doesn't do it as plausibly in a lot of points. Like, the descent into madness and chaos is literally like, I
do agree.
It's like suddenly all the characters are screaming at each other all the time.
It was indeed a very rapid descent into madness.
It's like
I must
panel
agree.
1, everyone's talking. Panel 2, everyone's fine. Panel 3, guys smiling. Panel 4, everyone's screaming. Panel 5, 2 people were murdered. Panel 6, 2 more people were murdered. Panel 7, the zombies fucking broke loose.
I do agree that in the pacing of at least reading it the way I read it in these 2 hardcovers, that the descent into madness did come suddenly. Like, at the end of the first trade, everyone was sane. At the beginning of the first trade, everyone was sane. And then there was this slight distrust with the prisoners and the little weird stuff going on. But then by the end of the second hardcover, they've completely lost it. I'm like, whoa, you lost it really quick. And maybe on the one hand, someone could say, well, they lost it really quick. That's the reality of a zombie world. That's why every zombie story is the same, because that's how it would be. But on the other hand, it really does feel like too quick a descent into madness. I could have bought it more easily if they descent into madness. They would have been completely mad at the end of, the third hardcover.
It wasn't well done and it wasn't well paced. And because it was, in addition to that, the same as every other zombie thing, it lost all its pizzazz. Also, this comic has a tendency of anytime the writer, I guess, that gets bored, he just randomly kills someone, or, oh shit, zombies, or, oh shit, serial killer, or, oh shit, crazy village run by some crazy guy who has a zombie daughter and has gladiatorial fights, or, everything they run into is just weird and implausible, and all the characters they meet along the way they don't act like humans. And, like, there's a thing with a double suicide that happens, and it's so out of nowhere. And it's not like, I'm mad because they didn't foreshadow this, but they did foreshadow this. No. There's a certain amount of foreshadowing that is required, lest you have everything just be a Deus Ex Machina or just a monkey wrench in the plot. And this comic either foreshadows things stupidly to the point that it's obvious what's going to happen, or just has crazy bad shit come out of nowhere.
Could that also be, though, an effect of your enhanced reading abilities? I mean,
you know what? If that's the case, then this is below me. I'm sorry. I can't. I gotta go read. I don't know.
I too saw through all the foreshadowing as well and knew exactly.
Except for the things that weren't foreshadowed at all, or that were foreshadowed poorly.
Yeah, like the fact that it was a prison. I was like, oh man, it's a prison.
The double suicide thing, when you get to it, is really dumb and not explained at all. And it's cool to have an unexplained thing in the universe, but it's unexplained in a really bad way and just doesn't make sense.
I didn't feel so poorly. I mean, the double suicide wasn't like my favorite part or anything.
It came out of nowhere and served no purpose.
It didn't leave a particularly bad taste.
And also,
it's just kind of like,
the characters who did it had no motivation to do that, and there was nothing there for that at all.
I don't know. There
was nothing.
There was some dialogue before they did it.
The only dialogue was, that one character is a little weird and creepy, but the other one's really normal and balanced, and then it was dumb.
All right, well, do you want to keep going talking about it? Or?
I don't know. I mean, I said the art is completely meh, and it is. The art doesn't really add or detract at all.
Well, the art is, I think one thing to be said about the art is that it's black and white, which is really cool for, a comic that's being made right now. Because most comics made right now are not... Well, it's not black and white, it's grayscale.
Yeah.
It's shades
The
of
one
gray.
thing I can say that a lot of action scenes, if you actually take the time to look at them, don't flow at all. There's no choreography in fight scenes. It is
No.
just they give the impression that a fight is happening, but they don't actually ever let you see a fight. And it kind of bothers me just because I liked where they were going with this kind of a procedural, like this is how they're dealing with it. This is the reality of the tactical situation of dealing with zombies. And instead, they never actually show you like the zombie defense working or the mundane encounter, like encounters. Actual encounters with zombies. It's just all kind of like, and then they killed all the zombies.
As I think that's what they're doing is they're trying to concentrate on the human drama.
But the human drama is poorly written. The characters are very poorly done and seem to have almost no motive. It's like the characters' motivations change randomly depending on the scene. Burning Wheel characters are better because at least they only have 3 things going and they stick to those 3 things. It's like the characters are all bipolar and they're either yelling, screaming crazy about something just weird or they're just completely calm and normal. And it doesn't flow well. It could flow well, but it doesn't. Also, this isn't the writer's fault, I don't think, but there are a lot of grammatical mistakes.
Are they?
Yeah.
That's the editor's fault.
He mixed up effect and effect more than once.
Uh-huh.
And
I didn't notice that.
And there were like one or
'cause
two.
I read comics real quick.
There were like 1 or 2 misspelled words, but other than that,
Yeah,
I'm not complaining about that. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, blame the editor for that one. But in general, I think that The Walking Dead is people. There's actually a thing going around. People think there's too many zombie comics. I don't know what they're talking
I
about.
think there aren't enough because almost all. I mean, I'm not saying that The Walking Dead is bad. It's really good, but every other zombie thing is crap.
I think The Walking Dead, it's not perfect. I mean, it does suffer some problems because it's being written as, a monthly 24-page thing, and I'm reading it in a hardcover, and I think that it's sort of written to be read in sort of little bits at a time to let you digest those little bits slowly. And, if you buy a little bit, you want to feel like something happens in that little bit, and that affects the pace when you read a whole bunch at once.
And I realized this because I read the summaries of the ones I haven't read yet just to, know where the plot goes. Because I wondered, maybe it saves itself. And I realized something. Reading the summary of an issue I'd read was pretty much the same as reading the issue. Because all it does is lay out what happens, but it skips the human drama. But the human drama is not very compelling because it's all kind of either really out there and doesn't really make sense in terms of how humans would act in any situation, or really pedestrian and just has played out and been done a million times before and not interesting.
I think the human drama is a little more interesting than that, but I agree that it's just not,
I can't care about these characters. I can't get into the characters. I can't understand their motivations.
That is one thing, is that I didn't, most of the characters I did not care about. There were only a very few that I cared about.
Some of the characters, I couldn't tell the difference until one died, and then there was only one left, and then I realized one was different.
The ones that I did care about, I could tell the difference. It was mostly, I could recognize the characters because the art was okay, but the name matching, I didn't get quite right, quick enough. But overall, the few characters I did care about, a lot of them died.
What I was getting at is that reading the summary, like a 2 or 3 paragraph summary of the plot of one, gave me the same feeling that reading it did. And that's why I read the summaries of the rest, and I think I'm going to read the summaries of all the rest of this comic on Wikipedia instead of reading the rest of the comic.
Keeps writing them.
They will. The article on this comic is rather extensive in terms of plot summary.
Scary.
It also has a matrix of characters who were still alive and as of when.
Wow. Crazy. So, as far as I'm concerned, if you like zombies, if you like comics, this is the comic to buy. You should be buying this.
As far as I'm concerned, the first 2 trades or the first hardcover is great. Read it. There's no reason not to read it. However, if you really like it, I will warn you that I feel that the comic goes effectively nowhere from that point forward.
I think it goes, from what I've read, which is the second hardcover, so trades 3 and 4, that it goes a little bit downhill. But I don't think it's like this horrible, terrible piece of crap.
The plot of what happens after what you have read from the summaries I read on Wikipedia is really, really dumb. Not worth reading dumb.
Well, hardcover number 3 is coming pretty soon.
That's all you.
And I will read it, and until then, I will withhold an opinion of it.
Yeah, but I'd get, I'm going to do the 1 out of 10 whatever. I would give the first one 9 out of 10 because it was a breath of fresh air and I fucking loved it. Second one 5 out of 10, and the rest of it from the summaries 4 out of 10.
Let's see. From the one, I would give the first one also a 9 out of 10, and I would give the second one maybe 7, 6.5, something like that.
Yeah, I don't see. The thing is, the second one was just kind of and I think about like, is there anything I'd rather?
The thing
be
is actually
reading?
it's sort of like the beginning. The second one, the reason it's hard to give. What'd you give it? Like a 5, a 4?
Well, here's the problem: the first like quarter of or third of the second one.
That's what I'm saying. The second one is like this slope. It's like it starts out as 9 and it slopes down to like 5.5. So
Yeah, the second book is just-
overall, I've got to give it something in between.
It's like I start on this plateau and I'm just running along this plateau and it's great. I start the second one, and it's just a hill and going down. And at the bottom of the hill, where the third one's going to start, is a crevice. And at the bottom of that crevice is the Marianas Trench.
All right.
I really am disappointed because I really liked it. And the fact that, I really wanted to, like, when I got to the parts that I didn't like in the second one, I kept convincing myself that it'll get better again or it's not so bad. And I was trying to like it. And by the time I got to the end, I was like, wow, I really didn't enjoy that at all. And I really don't want to read any more of this.
Uh-huh. So I guess if you are interested in reading comics about zombies, it's me versus Rim. We slightly disagree. But regardless, I think everyone should read the first 2 trades / first hardcover of The Walking Dead by Robert Kirkman from Image Comics.
Did we say who wrote it?
Robert Kirkman.
Oh, yeah.
I said that
we did.
before.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see how much it costs on Amazon, and then we'll be out. Okay, on Amazon, each individual trade costs about, $10.39.
That's probably worth it.
And the hardcovers are about $20. So it's like...
Might as well buy the hardcovers.
Yeah, look, hardcover, $19.99. Trade paperback, $10.39. So you're either going to pay $20.80 or $19.99 to get a hardcover. I mean, you're saving money buying a hardcover. Can't go wrong.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Audio. Just click the link that says Send Me an Audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.